Hey, and welcome to Industry Night with me, Nycci Nellis, the show that takes you on the deep dive of what's happening in the hospitality industry. If you're new here, hi, welcome back. A little bit about me. I've been covering the DC food, wine, and hospitality scene for the last 20 years. You know the list, areyouwantit.com, the online e-zine that tells you absolutely everything happening in the DC metro area. Of course, you listen to Foodie and the Beast every Sunday. My husband David and I have been doing the only food and wine variety show here in the DC market for the last 15 years. You follow me and all my travels and all my eatings at NYCCI, Nellis, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Threads, and of course, Industry Night, this show that has been on air for 7 years, but just in the last year, we've got our new YouTube component. So thanks so much for joining us. And here is the best part. I have my residency this month here at the Point in downtown DC. That's why you hear all the noise and all the fun, because we're in a real restaurant where life is really happening. So I love it here. It is gorgeous out today. We should really be doing this on the patio.
That's what I thought.
Owner of the Point is Greg Casten. You may know him because he owns a lot of restaurants here in the DC market, but he also is the guy behind ProFish, one of the biggest fish distributors on the East Coast, right?
I like to think that way.
Yeah, so let's talk about a little bit about how a guy from the fish business gets into the restaurant business.
So a guy from the fish business works as a crewman on a fish boat and as a helper in a restaurant, and he grows up mixing both of them together and realizing the love that he has for both. I was born in a small town just south of Boston, worked on a lobster boat, and I worked in a fast food restaurant flipping burgers, and I love the challenge of both. A lot of very similar things go on in those two industries.
But I'm sort of curious when it comes to fish, because when you started in the fish biz, it's very different than how it is today. The rules, the regulations, where fish comes from, the requirements of farmed versus wild caught, and then you have sustainability. Like, how do you take that sort of behemoth of like sustainability and employ that in what you're doing and what you're selling to people?
You know, that's a great question, because fish is really, really complicated. You mentioned farm versus wild. Just in the last decade, farm is now 55% of sales, but when I first started ProFish in 1986, farm sales were probably 5 or 7%. And then along with that farm is how you farm, and are you doing it sustainably and in a way that takes care of the environment around you.
Right, stewardship, right?
And not just stewardship in terms of clean water, but stewardship in terms of how you might affect other species or even other raw materials. Like in Chile, they have an argument with the lumber industry and the fishing industry and how they can work together, ironically, because of the sawdust that is created in the mill. Really interesting stuff you learn along the way, and how integral a part seafood is in the everyday life of so many people worldwide, not just harvesting it, but getting it all the way to your plate where you see it.
Well, that's the part that I always find the most interesting. You know, we're so, especially in this country, we're so far away from our food, right? We're not near the farms. Even if you go to a farmer's market, we're not where agriculture is. We're certainly not where aquaculture is. So where is the disconnect in that story, or how do you tell that story, especially through the fish you're serving in a restaurant?
Well, first of all, the customer always wants and always knows fresh fish first, not fresh fish. The best restaurants are run by people that know how to recognize good fish when it comes in the door and are not afraid to tell their fish purveyor, hey, I can't take this, it's not up to my standards. And what happens in those standards can be anywhere in 10 different places in the chain of supply. And so you comment that it's not local, right? What is the definition of locally harvested seafood? Is it 50 miles away? Is it 200 miles away?
Is it just from the USA, right?
And so it would be impossible to eat just local fish without truly restricting your diet. You might have 6 species out of the Chesapeake Bay that are prolific, that, porgy, spot. rockfish,
Sure.
flounder, but you wouldn't get American lobster, or you wouldn't get warm water lobster, or you wouldn't get king crab leg, or you wouldn't get, really, you'd get crab meat, but not enough to sustain the desire that's out there. So as you expand and you want to get at the best stuff, you have to go find out where that is. And a lot of the cost factor comes from the foreign nations and the foreign folks, and by that I mean in Europe, wanting to buy the source product, and as close to the source and as soon as it is sourced as possible. And that's what the real drive in seafood is. Amazingly, seafood follows money. I mean,
Sure.
the cost of money. If the British pound is $1.20 to the American dollar, then they're going to bring the herring over here and sell it here because they're getting more money. But if it's 80 cents to the dollar, they might leave it there. I believe I have that backwards, but you get my meaning.
I know what you're
It's
saying.
arbitrage. It's all about the currency. And so, like, as we were coming out of the end of the pandemic, the restaurant scene in France is crazy for American lobster, but their sales were anemic. You could buy lobster for nothing, really.
Oh, well, then what's right? From
And
a sales
today-
perspective, right.
But today, lobster's double the price it was. And that's because the European demand has come back and put pressure on there's only one place in the world you can get it from,
Right.
Canada to New Jersey.
Right.
Or thereabouts. So same thing with us and the seafood. We're always just looking for that right buy at that source, and then every chef is looking for something new or something really elite, right? Everybody likes crab meat. Well, now there's Venezuelan crab meat, there's Vietnamese crab meat, there's Indonesian crab meat, there's Alabama crab meat, there's Louisiana crab meat, there's Maryland meat, there's Virginia. And I could spend 15 minutes telling you the slight differences
Between
in
all.
each one. But some of these chefs have figured out which one they want and only want on their menu. And I think the customer base can end up relying on that consistency. And that's really what our game is all about, is providing what the chef wants and making sure that he's educated in how he wants it.
All right. It's always great to have Greg Casten join me for a couple minutes. And as I do on every show, I tell you about where I've been and what I've been doing. And if you are on the list, areyouonit.com, where I've been and what I've been doing is on that calendar. And you can be doing the same fun and delicious things as I am. Okay, so let's say, I was at Bourbon Steak at the Four Seasons on Friday night for the annual Georgetown Wine and Dine. Michael Mina, celebrity chef, brings all his favorite friends into town. Adam Sobel, Nina Compton, Michael White. You get the draft. They were all in town, all cooking for this annual event that's really fun. A lot of wine information, incredible wines being poured. Wynn Robertson, who you know really well, he was pouring me Krug all night long. And it was just a party. The dinner was filled with like famous names and faces. Linda Carter was there, An Yang, Aaron Kokomo. Like, it was just so much fun. So don't miss it next year because it is an annual event. And then as if the Four Seasons wasn't fancy enough on a Friday, I went to the Pendry at the Wharf on a Saturday because there was another chef-led event. This one was to raise money for DC Central Kitchen. Barry Koslow, who does a lot of work with DC Central Kitchen and is the chef at the Flora Flora at the Pendry Hotel, brought together a bunch of area chefs to do a chef's giving. So all the chefs there were tasked with doing a Thanksgiving-themed meal, but not Thanksgiving. Anyway, it was really tons of fun. And let me tell you who was there. Kevin Tiem was there, and quite frankly, I thought he made the dish of the evening. Jay Zwoniak was there, Juan Carlo from La Famosa. Anyway, it was just a really fun cast of people. They had a great group of people there, and it just made it lots of fun. So, so much more going on, but I'm going to save it for my next show. Because I've got two great people here with me now and I want to get to the show. So about 3 weeks before the world shut down in 2020 when COVID happened, I got invited to a dinner at Crane's that was opened by Chef Pepe Moncayo, who, like, there was a lot of buzz around him because he had come in from Singapore and he was doing some really interesting things, a combination, because he's from Barcelona, a combination of Japanese cuisine and Spanish cuisine, and he was putting it together in this really funky environment on the plate. So it was very exciting. We had this amazing dinner, and then of course 3 weeks later, it all went to hell. But here's what's interesting about Chef. So he's born and raised in Barcelona. He has a pretty storied career path because he does go to culinary school, but he really pops around the region and works with very famous chefs. A lot of them Michelin starred, a lot of restaurants Michelin starred. He himself is Michelin starred. And somehow he winds up in Singapore. Oh, wait, I know how you wind up in Singapore. Chef Santi, right?
Correct.
Yes, so he gets to Singapore and then in 2013 opens up his own restaurant called BAM. And that is somewhere in there in Singapore. He meets his wife, who's sitting here with me, Aisha, who really doesn't want to be here, but we're forcing her to tell her story today because I think it's important. Anyway, in 2019, they come to DC. They bring their 4 kids. They leave 3 at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. They leave Singapore. They come to DC, which I'm struggling to figure that part out. But they leave Singapore, they come to DC, and that's when they open up Cranes. And then since that time, they've opened up another restaurant called Jimwa Singapura. And 2 different restaurants doing 2 different things. But not only are they husband and wife team, but they're partners in life and partners in business as well. So I really wanted to sort of bring that dynamic to the table. So thank you so much for joining me today. And you as well.
Of course.
So Chef, let's just do a little background because I'd love to know a little bit about how you got into cooking. Growing up in Barcelona, what was the vibe then? What was the feel then? Because San Sebastian now is just like epicenter of dining. Did you grow up in that sort of whirlwind?
No.
Okay.
I am the only cook in the family. There is no industry-related relative at all. And how my history went, it's a family of 5. I have an elder sibling and a younger sister. When I was 13 years old, my mom passed away.
Okay.
So my father works in a factory. He don't know how to fry an egg.
Okay.
My brother was going for the army that very time that my mom passed away, and my sister was 6 on that time. So I was appointed the executive chef of the family, and I started going to do shopping. I started cooking at home. I bought there's a famous TV chef called Carlos Arguiñano. I bought the book. I started cooking at home, trying. Those recipes served today, probably people will trash me very much.
Okay.
But that actually got us to survive and to thrive. And
but you were feeding people for sustenance,
I'm very proud.
right? Like
I'm very proud of what I did.
You stepped up.
Absolutely.
But it must have ignited a passion in 2 ways, right? You saw what happened when you put food on the table, right? And what it did for your family, especially in hard times, and what it probably did for you.
I just started loving it, and while I was doing this, I keep studying. And when it was time to choose what college career I wanted to do, there was nothing that I was interested in, absolutely nothing. So I thought, why I don't do culinary school? And that's when
That's when you went to culinary school.
Yeah.
And so when you went to culinary school, was there like a path? Because I mean, your resume is just filled with like flashy names and incredible people. And was that part of your trajectory? You were like, no, I want to work with these people, or did you just wind up there?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay. I love
this.
So
I wanted to cook, and actually I went to culinary school and I failed miserably.
Oh my God, I love that.
So
I'm glad you weren't my kid because I would kill you. But okay, go ahead.
It was an expensive one. So,
yeah.
But anyways, I was working for it myself, and I started culinary school. And because I had high studies, they put me in a course of managing restaurants and something, and I wanted to cook. So there were 2 weeks in the practicing in the restaurant of the school, and 2 weeks in the classroom, getting marketing, English, French, all of the above. That to me in that moment was unnecessarily boring. So I will wake up myself on the class and everybody was laughing.
Okay.
I was no interest in that. So I give up on the school, and the school had a hotel that were teammates were going to train, no? The scholarship, but you were going to train there. So the chef de cuisine, or the executive chef actually, in the hotel asked me, Pepe, you are not going anywhere, start working with me. And I started doing breakfast and scrambled eggs, really super simple. But funny enough, I ended up being the trainer of my classmates.
Really?
That is stupid, yeah.
I love that.
That is still big.
So you go from there, but let's talk a little bit. Like, how did you wind up working in these super high-end? You know, I hate using the term fancy because it just sounds silly, but like you went to these elevated spaces.
Yes.
So what was it that you were learning at those spaces?
How I end up there is by recommendation.
Okay.
I always say the same thing, and I don't know, I never did a resume in my life. Never. Always I was working somewhere and someone recommended me to the next restaurant. And there was this moment I was working in the casino of Barcelona, and the director of operations, Mr. Santi, actually, his name was Santi.
Right.
He told me, he was an old man, Pepe, with your talent, you need to go to work to this restaurant. I said, which one is that?
Right.
And there was this very iconic, it's been forever there, restaurant in Barcelona called Via Veneto. It's a Michelin star. A super classic Frenchy Catalan restaurant. And I remember he sent me there for an interview. The kitchen was underground.
Yeah.
I went inside and the feeling was something different. It really, you step in something that you feel an aura of stress and intensity and bodies moving fast and focus and the chef is screaming like crazy and say, wow, I want to work here.
Wow. I would be like, oh my God, get me out of here. It did not strike fear in you.
No.
You were like, no, I want that.
Because there is this thing that is very nice. What you say at the beginning, no? You ignite something passionate about cooking, the feeling of getting that emotional response to what you are serving to someone. But there is a part of it which is the belonging to something, belonging to a crew, the adrenaline of service, the rush hour. All those things are addictive. Sorry, they are addictive, and you really love it. We love.
Yeah, because it's a
operations.
high, right?
We are operation people, and we love the operation. Yeah, the managing, the financing, all of those are parts of the business that you need to take care of. But what we really love, what gets you hooked, is service, is hospitality, is delivering. Exactly.
So you're front of house.
Yes.
So where did you start in the industry?
So I have a very humble background. So
Okay.
I started in an Italian family restaurant.
In Singapore.
In Singapore, yeah. So before moving to a Spanish restaurant where we first worked together.
Okay.
Yes, and then soon after we opened BAM. So ever since that day we've been working together. I think for the past decade we've been working side by side.
So when you got into the industry, was it just a job, or you like, oh, because like I love hearing how your passion grew, right, and what you did in order. You didn't know what you were doing, but then you got there and it created a real passion in you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Did that happen for you?
No, not really. For me, in the beginning, it was just like a job. So that passion kind of grows inside you the more that you spend time at work. So that was happening.
Okay, and then so how did you two meet?
I went to Singapore to open a restaurant for my mentor.
Okay.
We opened in 2010.
Yes, 2010.
2010.
7, right here.
And my mentor passed in 2011.
Okay.
So the restaurant is starting to go a bit south, but we have very regular customers. The first customer that invested on me was the Italian family.
That I work with.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So
It's like the stars totally aligned.
they put us together.
Okay.
They put us together. So that's how we connect each other. Actually, the first time I saw her was in the restaurant of the Italian family. I noticed her, she never noticed me.
Aw.
And the second time I met her, it's because they brought her for lunch to Santi, Singapore.
Yes.
Oh.
And that's when I really like, oh my God, who's this lady?
So did you start a relationship before BAM or after BAM?
Before.
Before BAM. Was the family that introduced you like upset because you left?
Well, they were upset because we actually started dating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's just
It
a
was like
little bit.
a rule of them because she was an employee, I
Right.
was the owner. For them, that was a no thing.
Right.
And who are you to put walls to love? It's not possible. You can put whatever rule, you can write whatever procedure.
Right.
Love happens. There's nothing you can do about it.
Well, let's talk about BAM because that really brings you here to the States.
Absolutely.
What were you doing in BAM? I don't think a lot of people are, Singapore is a huge destination now.
Yes.
But in 2013, it wasn't as as much of a travel destination as other places in Asia, right? So what was that? You were on like at the infancy of the food and cultural revolution happening in Singapore at that time. So what was happening there? What was BAM? What were you doing? How were you evolving?
Wow. We were working in the Spanish restaurant, and the name was Hola. And I had this annoying customer coming every time with bottles of sake to the restaurant. And we were 100% traditional cuisine.
Okay, Spanish.
And we'll come with the sake. Pepe, this sake with your food goes so well. Oh yeah, Derek, yeah, sure. I never was attending to him. Really.
Okay.
No, my food goes with wine. I'm Spanish, I'm Mediterranean.
Right.
What he's talking about?
Right.
And one day he came to me and said, Pepe, you want to go to Japan? I said, what do you mean? I fly you, I pay for you. Come, join me. All right.
Wow.
So he flew me to Japan. We went to Tokyo. We took a bullet train to Sendai. And in Sendai, there is this super recognized, amazing sake brewery called Katsuyama. I went inside that temple, imagine, samurai swords and the shield, everything. You are like, oh my goodness. And suddenly I see in the back of the brewery a pizza flying. I say, oh, what? And shoom, again flying.
A pizza?
Yes.
Yes. So
Okay, I thought I misheard him.
imagine that Japanese temple, no? And then the owner of the brewery, Mr. Jihei Isawa, brought me to the back of the brewery, and there is an Italian restaurant and the world champion pizzaiolo, which is a Japanese,
Yes.
performing there. So that guy,
I kind of wish I was there. That sounds amazing.
that guy was a visionary, and he was doing the pairing of sake with Italian traditional cuisine.
Wow.
He put me through the experience of trying that food versus champagne, wine, beer, and sake, and blew my mind. He blew my mind. So with that idea, I copied, and I did the same in Singapore to open BAM, doing the Spanish tapas with sake.
Okay.
And Mr. Isawa came for the opening, trained our team with the sake pairing, how to experience it, how to do the best pairings. And that was the starting of it. But I started as Spanish with Japanese sake. And then the rest
Just sort of came together.
was organically.
But so I'm sort of curious about that because when you came to the States, what brought you both to the States? That should really be the question.
You go?
So we want to find a new experience. So we've been working together in Singapore, so we want to branch out. So we want to see what is it on the other side of the world. Me personally, I never lived outside of Singapore. I was born and raised all my life spent in Singapore. So I said, why not? Let's try to, do something else in our life. So that's when we got approached to come here, and we decided to move the kids.
Okay, now, had you ever been to the States?
No, before the offer, no.
Wow.
We just came to explore. Before we decided to move, we flew 3 times. Her and me to visit the city. We stay in different places, hotel, Airbnb, explore the city, restaurants, and we really thought that we can do something here.
And you liked it?
It's different.
It's so different.
Oh my God. Honestly, if I can just say one word, it's eye-opening for me personally. I came from Singapore, which is a tiny red dot on the map, and to the other side of the world, which is so huge.
Right.
This country is big. And we came in during the Trump administration. There is a lot of protests going on and everything else. The experience itself is very eye-opening for me.
I bet.
In Singapore, there is no right to protest.
No, it's a very strict, right? It's strict.
Singapore is an amazing country.
I have no doubt.
We'll go back in the blink of an eye. We are happy there, but it's predictable, works perfect. You know what is going to happen. You get the good life, and we wanted to experience something for our family. And I always say the same thing. Cranes can go south very quick because of the pandemic. You were there.
Right.
There was a chance we never made it through. But if we, in 2021, we need to wrap our things and go back to Singapore, we will do it over and over and over, because the impact as a family for us to grow is been perfect.
That's amazing. So how did you find running a business? I have questions for you for front of the house, because it's so different here.
Oh my God. Yes.
than over there. So you came to do cranes with the idea of not just sake with Spanish cuisine,
No.
but Japanese and Spanish fusion.
Correct.
So for people who maybe haven't had the opportunity to see what you're doing, what does that mean? Is it using Japanese products and using Spanish techniques, a switch of it? How would you explain it?
All of the above.
Okay.
So as I said, 2013 I opened them with a clear Spanish tapas with sake, but then it went through an evolution. You get soaked by ingredients, I started using techniques, start mixing, experimenting. I was free to do as I please. And what Cranes is BAM 2.0. How I pick it up how I leave it in 2018, 2019, and continue here. What Cranes is not the same as BAM was, because Cranes is me, in the United States,
Right.
working with different people, working with a different country, and it's a very personal kitchen.
Okay. Well, I mean, that kitchen is enormous and beautiful. But that kitchen at Cranes, like, because if you're
Totally
sitting at the right table,
Yeah.
it is massive. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful kitchen. So how did you evolve? Like you had to evolve, and how did you evolve? Like coming to a new country, opening up a restaurant, really not knowing the vibe. You're right. When you came here, like,
A lot going on.
there was a lot going on. I mean, listen, DC is a very blue, they did not, DC and its environs did not like the occupant of the White House. And there was a lot of,
No secrets.
it was not easy for a lot of people. But yeah, there was a lot of protests. There was a lot of issues. Do you know what I mean? So how did that translate into how you ran the front of your house and offering hospitality? Because the consumer here is very different, I would imagine, than the consumer in Singapore.
You would say that, but for us, it's like it came naturally because we are used to being on the floor. So we treat everybody as the same. So how we serve in Singapore is the same thing that we do here.
Okay.
For me, the hardest thing would be is the tipping policy here.
You don't get it.
I don't get it.
So what's the tipping policy in Singapore?
In Singapore, we do service charge. And any cash tips or credit card tips, we split equally. So over here, there is a percentages, and then
Right.
it's front of the house only, and then not the back of the house. So it's very hard for me to understand what they mean.
Well, I mean, really, the tipping issue is really specific to the United States
Yes.
because it's not like that almost anywhere else.
Not that I know.
No, me either. So it's very interesting. And they're trying to change it here.
Good luck.
But, huh?
Good luck.
But they even voted for it in DC. They want to change it, but then the diner comes in and is angry about it. It's very strange. I think a service charge makes sense. I don't understand that. I mean, when you travel, that's what it is. I mean, I just came back from Italy for 2 weeks. That's what you do.
Correct. I don't know, it's a very hard thing to change. I know there is leader in the industry like Meyer try to do it, and
I know.
if he cannot make something to change it, you really need to
But I think
align many things to make it.
I think for Danny Meyer, and I can't speak for him, but I kind of wonder if he thought, well, if I do it and people follow, then it could be successful. But there just wasn't it wasn't like people saw him do it. Everybody sort of sat back to see what would happen as opposed to joining on.
Yeah.
I think if more and more people did it, then it could be successful,
For us, knowing the amount of hourly rate our servers can make with tips
Yes,
to absorb that cost coming from us,
Right.
it will be impossible to sustain. And at the same time, if you cut that revenue they're making, they will go out to somewhere else. So it's very, very, very,
It's tricky.
very
it's a lose-lose.
yeah, very tricky.
And yet, you decided to open up a second restaurant
I know,
after
right?
opening Cranes, after all of that. So tell me a little bit about the second restaurant.
The first restaurant, it was, as I say, BAM 2.0. This restaurant, Jiwa Singapura, is a homage to Singapore. I lived there for many years. Aisha.
Born and raised.
It's
But there isn't, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong. There's not like Singaporean restaurants in this area.
no, there is not. There is not.
So how would you best explain, like, what did you grow up on? What did you grow up eating? What is Singaporean cuisine?
Well, for me, the Singaporean cuisine is closely related to Malaysia with
Okay.
all the neighboring countries. So it's more like a rice, like chicken rice. We have the nasi lemak, which is the coconut rice. We also have influence from Thailand, neighboring country. So we are used to like tom yum flavor. And also we have a lot of people migrating from China. So we have Singapore is a melting pot of country.
Okay, so there's a lot of influences. But yet, what about sort of the access to the ingredients? Like, are there ingredients that are more indigenous to Singapore that sort of replaces maybe what somebody would use in China or what somebody would use in Vietnam?
I say that the cultures came along, and that's the good thing about Singapore, is where even there is a style of cuisine that is the blend of all of them, which is called the Peranakan. You have the Indian, Malay, Chinese, and the Peranakan, which is a sum of all of them.
Okay.
So they work with the ingredients, they adapt to the place. What is hard is to find those ingredients that you find in Southeast Asia in here.
That's what I was going to ask.
That's the tricky part, but in
Okay.
there, the cuisine is totally adapted to the environment. They cook what they have. It's, at the end of the day, the cuisine of Singapore is the cooking in the houses and the families. They cook what you get in the market. That's it.
Right. Well, that's what because when you travel to Barcelona, let's say, there is a variety of interpretations of Spanish cuisine.
Yes.
But I always kind of wonder, is this it's not what everybody's eating at home. Like Americans, we don't have a cuisine. Do you know what I mean? Really, like hamburgers, hot dogs, like, what I grew up eating in my house was whatever my mom was cooking, at a gourmet magazine or whatever. And that's how I cook. I cook all sorts of things, but nothing that my mom made, except maybe for like the holidays, nothing that my mom made like stays with me. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think if you grow up in Spain, there are dishes you made that your family made. It goes back. Do you know what I mean? That are
100%.
indigenous.
I remember all the dishes my mother used to cook.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
They're sort of indigenous. So, what did you take from your time in Singapore, and how did you add that to your menu?
In here?
Yes.
Wow. Most of it. In fact, the whole reason to open this restaurant is that I love Singaporean cuisine. And when you don't find anyone representing that, you see a niche, an opportunity to that, and share that love with people. No, she cooks at home. She is not gonna say, but she cooks super good.
Okay.
And there is some dishes in the restaurant that are totally the recipe that she does at home. There is this duck salted egg sauce that we do with shrimps and curry leaves and chilies and a bit of lime, which is exactly the way that we would cook it at home. And then there is interpretation of the dishes that you get back there. No.
Okay.
Example: a chicken rice, which is the staple of Singaporean cuisine, will be a poached whole chicken. Do not forget that Singapore is a consistent 100 Fahrenheit temperature.
Right.
So they will poach the chicken and hang it for 6 hours, room temperature, and upon order, they will start chopping it and serving with a steamed rice.
So wait, I have to ask. So you poach it, a whole chicken.
Yeah.
I got that part.
Yeah.
You're gonna hang it like
100
you would
Fahrenheit, room
like a duck.
Yeah.
But where are you hanging it in your house? Just like over your sink?
At home, you will do that, but in the street food, they have the hangers there.
Oh, they're just hanging
on the
Got
window.
You. Okay.
I'm
thinking in your house, like next to it. Like, where is it hanging?
What I'm trying to say,
yes.
If I were to do exactly that recipe in here,
yes,
health department will shut you down.
They would shut you down, of course.
Right away.
Right.
So I do a sous vide chicken that resembles.
You chef it up a bit, but you have no choice. You have no choice.
Exactly.
Okay. So what I'd love to know is, like, given that you're cooking it at home, were there things that you said to him like, I really miss X? Like when you used to, the two of you used to go out in Singapore, were you like,
oh my goodness.
this is what I miss. This is what I need to see on the menu. I don't want to cook it. I want to go out for it. Were there things that you wanted to eat?
Plenty, actually.
Yes, actually. And not only Singaporean.
Yeah,
Mhm.
not in Singapore, yes. I think Singaporean, it's so convenient in Singapore that where we all of us live in an apartment, but Singapore is a very small country. So we can just go down
Right.
to the hawker and get anything we want for like $2.50,
Right.
and we get a meal. So that's something that I really miss, is that food culture. The freedom of just going down and I can get something,
Sure.
right in front of me. I mean, for a specific dish, I don't really have a specific dish that I miss, because I try to cook it myself. Because I understand that I might not be able to get it here.
Right.
So I always try to cook it myself at home.
And I know, so you said it's hard to get some ingredients. Are you finding it easier now
No.
to get ingredients, or
But I
is it
think that
just tough?
it's not possible, and it's due to the demand. Yeah, sure. If suddenly I'm in a food industry and I can sell 300 pounds of candle nuts,
Right.
I don't mind. I will fly them. I will sell them.
Right.
That's business. But if only me, I'm asking you to fly me 2 pounds of
Right.
candle nuts from Singapore to
Sure.
here. Yeah, sure. You want them? $2,000 a pound.
Right.
Of course.
I mean, that's kind of, we're going to, later in the show, you and Greg are going to talk about business, and we're not going to have time, but I'd love to talk about ingredients, like what is the fish that you're eating in Singapore? And obviously you can't always serve that here because of, you know what I mean? Or just because people don't know it, so they're not going to order it. I mean, Americans are pretty finicky. There are the adventurous eaters, but then there are those who like, no, I want my salmon, I want my Maryland blue crab. I mean, it's silly.
I think in grains, people that comes to grains is actually adventurous.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's an educated
I
consumer.
feel that way. I don't, people try.
But what about
fishes.
a Jinwa? Because that's at Tyson's.
That's a different animal.
Yeah.
That's really
Definitely.
a different animal. The crowd, the demand, the expectation, it's totally different animal.
Isn't it wild?
If you cross the river, you're in a different world.
I
Really.
know. That's why I don't cross the river often.
Totally.
Um,
But yeah, it's a different animal.
okay, what I'd love to do is talk about as a husband and wife team. So my husband and I do a different show together. And it's really a balance when you work with your spouse, even a little bit. But you guys work all the time together. How do you guys balance working front of the house and back of the house and working at your house to get, like, what's the balance? How do you make that work? Because my husband and I sometimes want to kill each other. You don't seem like that kind of person. She seems a lot more easygoing than I am.
Oh, it's absolutely the contrary. She's the boss.
Well, I didn't say she wasn't the boss. I just said she seemed easygoing. An easygoing boss.
She's iron fist.
Okay.
Yeah, you can say that.
It's iron fist.
I come from Singapore.
Hey, I come from New Jersey. I don't know what that means, but like, I'm a bossy babe. Huh?
It means that we are very strict.
She's a tiger
Okay.
mom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
you're okay. So you're strict, and so that translates to your business and how you want to run the business.
It's true.
Oh yeah.
Okay. He's
Yeah.
like-
Oh yeah.
so
In some aspect, yes.
okay, but how do you guys relate at the restaurant? Because sometimes the front of house and back of house, the outsider would think they'd have to work together
Yeah.
in order to be
Absolutely.
successful, but sometimes there's a lot of contention between the two. So how do you blend the two so that it's positive?
That's a good one, because something that I receive from our co-workers or employees or team members is how good is the relationship in the restaurant between back and front of the house. Because we know what is each other's expertise. I do the cooking, she will give me a feedback if she don't like something right
Right.
away, no question. But I understand that she takes care of a part and I take care of another part. And even though our responsibilities crosses, we know which one needs to do which one.
Yeah.
And now we have a very large team. So it's,
Well, I was going to
we
say,
don't stay that close because we have a lot.
I mean, how many people are working at Jinwa?
In Jiwa, around 60 people,
That's a large team. And what about at Cranes?
close to 90 to 100 people.
Yeah.
But when we opened BAM, it was me and 2 guys in the kitchen,
Uh-huh.
she and 2 guys in the
I
front of
think
the
10
house.
of us.
It was 1,000 square foot restaurant
Oh, so it was tiny.
Yes.
with 20 seaters. We can do 120 every night, and that really was she and me.
A lot of tension.
Yeah.
I bet. Well, because you were bumping into each other.
Oh,
Totally different.
And there
Maybe
was
because it was too small.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things I always talk about, we have to wrap this up, but especially in this area, because all the buildings are new, the restaurant spaces are so, I mean, look at the space we're in. It's massive.
Yes,
This is big.
it
Massive, massive, massive. And it always gives me a little bit, it makes my heart, I was like, they can be able to put enough people in here. Like, it's scary to me to see a space this size. I know they do, but, it's just sort of this bigger is better mentality, which I think is really interesting.
And just to add to that, I think at home we don't talk too much about work.
Yeah,
When we are off day, we naturally just kind of
just
shut off. It's not that it's a pact or any agreement that we have. We just shut off. It's
Right.
family time. We spend time with the kiddos.
Sometimes it just happens. That
Right.
you thought about work and then you just
Get it out.
Yeah, it just naturally happens. It's just without meaning.
Right. Well, no, listen, sometimes you have to. I have a rule. My husband likes to talk business or money. He likes to talk about money, like what's in the bank and stuff like that. My rule is once you cross a threshold into the bedroom, nope, no math, no business, no nothing. I don't want to hear about it.
That's a good.
There has to be
Yeah.
boundaries
I
somewhere.
totally agree on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. I know you don't do a lot of this, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming and chatting with your husband today. Because the dynamic of a husband and wife team in business is unique. And people need to understand how hard it is to do, right? Yeah, okay. Will you please tell everybody where they can find you in all your restaurants? Instagram, online, however you want to do.
All of the above.
Yes.
Yeah. And we are in Cranes in Chinatown and Jiwa Singapura in Tyson's Galleria.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you both for joining me
Thank
today.
you for having us.
Great. So when Chef first got here, Greg and Chef started talking, and they were talking about the business, what was going on business-wise. And Greg was asking you a bunch of questions about, how you're doing, like the finances of having restaurants right now, not just in the DC market, but just given the tenor of what's happening out there after the pandemic. So, I'd like to sort of pick up on that. Like, how has it changed for you financially? And feel free to ask questions, because your questions are way more nuanced than
Right.
mine, based on what you know.
Hi.
Hi.
We were having a conversation about what's going on since early this year.
Mhm.
For us, January, February, March for us was the best months in the history of the restaurant.
Okay.
Fantastic. And from April, it's been going down slowly. And since now October, November is really picking up. We are like 15% of the downfall that we had from April until September. The history is that my restaurant opened 5 weeks before pandemic.
Yes.
As you very well know. So I've been living throughout pandemic, and everything is flipped. But you know better because you've been long time in this city. I'm only here 4 or 5 years, and actually 3 operating. So they always told me, January, February, July, August, brace yourself, you're gonna be dead. And all those things never accomplished.
Well, because I don't think that works. I don't think any of that is true anymore. I mean, January, yes, for a lot of people. Like,
Not for me.
not for you. That's amazing. I get calls in January. People are like, it's so dead. It's so dead. I'm like, it's January. It's so dead every January. Like, it is January. But then it picks up right away. Like, I would think because of where you are with the 3-day weekend for MLK holiday, tourism. Do you think all that
I don't
swoops
think there
in?
is no explanation that I can give you.
Okay.
The only thing I can give you is I don't have a clue.
Okay.
That's the reality, because 2021 winter was horrible. January, February was really a struggle because my staff was asking me, Chef, give me hours. I need hours while you cut me off. Because from December, we were super busy and suddenly drop. So 2022, I'm in December, I'm super busy. I'm bracing myself, telling the people, hey guys, get ready for it. You know what happened in January? You know what it's going to be? It was totally the opposite. Winter 2022 was crazy.
Wow.
So the only thing I can give you is I don't understand it.
I would say we experienced the same thing, and I related to January, February, March were the biggest we had, and then it started tailing off then. Also, the warm weather came, And I think we're fortunate to be in Washington because the tourists, maybe it didn't trail off as much, but I think urban areas, downtown areas, suffered more because nationally, the crime, when the heat happened and the country was, again, coming out of a pandemic and some kids who hadn't gone to school for years, for literally 2 years. There's a lot of misbehavior, not just here in Washington, but all over the country. People are learning to deal with, and I think the average citizen watches that and says, oh, maybe I'll stay home closer tonight. Maybe I'll spend a little less money right now. But I agree, November has turned really positive.
Yes, I agree on that. Same.
And then we were talking about, the other issue is that you're forced with inflation to charge more money, so you get deceived. Even when you're up in sales, you might not be up in cover counts, and it's so critical for restaurateurs to look at the number of people who are coming into their places every day. Not as dollars are really important, but without the customer, you're only going to get so many dollars from those people.
100%.
So how does that change for you now?
Same. Inflation has been coming into us. They charge you transportation. They charge you cost of foods way higher. And in my case, I think we have been reactive. We have been increasing prices as soon as we were hit by the bottom, and we have been pushing that to the customer side. And I think we need to do the effort. Our creative minds need to come with a way to do dishes, create food with less pricey ingredients that are still good, because there's humble ingredients that are good, and try to accommodate that, because the climate, the financial climate, I don't think it's going to change very soon.
No, I mean, once you're here, it's not like things ease down fast.
No.
And you're talking, especially when we talk about your restaurants, we're talking about expensive ingredients to begin with.
Absolutely.
Whether it's truffles, the fish you serve, the Wagyu, like you are not serving, you're not just doing burgers. You're doing a very special, a very special and niche menus that require higher priced ingredients.
To reinforce that, I'm targeting to the top of the pyramid. And not everybody can allow that. And something that it really piqued my attention, we were doing restaurant week in August, and we were slow in August, and then we happened to do 500 covers per night in Grace.
Wow.
A menu that is a 40% or 40% of our regular menu was $55 versus the regular $148.
Right.
And the volume was crazy, and the people was coming. And the funny thing, what really piques my attention, that I was expediting food in restaurant week. In every other table, I was sending my celebration cake. It was a birthday, it was an anniversary, so people.
It's an excellent point.
Restaurant week to celebrate at $55. That is a special occasion.
Yeah.
So that really tells you what the financial situation is going on. And I see that with my eyes, and if I don't react to that, I don't want to accept the reality where we need to actually be accommodating to more pockets.
Well, I always say with restaurants, you can do as a chef what you want to do.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if you don't meet people where they are, then there's no business, right?
We do the business for them.
Right.
They need them. If I had the best restaurant with the best food, but people don't come for it,
Right.
bye-bye.
I think you make an excellent point about the event-driven crowd. I mean, as people work from home more to come out, they need that draw. And it's the event. So the restaurants are smart. They're smart guys like that. They're out here, they adapt to what's going to bring people in, and they find the right meal, and they find the right meal point price, and they cater to that event, and they make a birthday special with a dessert or a singing waiter or whatever it is that it takes to make right the prime rib. They had that guy who sang a cappella "Happy Birthday." People loved it for years. But it is those restaurants that can differentiate themselves that are going to really make it through this tough time, because I think it is going to be a tough time for some restaurants.
I agree.
Because we haven't even talked about labor.
I can't get into labor because I have to end the show.
Oh, it's always fun to be here. You have the best guests.
I know. Next time, I'll bring you back.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, there goes another episode of Industry Night. Thank you so much for joining me today. There is so much going on, not just in the DC metro area, but in the hospitality industry in general. Please follow me at NYCCINELLIS on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, all the channels, because there is so much happening and I am doing so many things. The people that I talked with today, Greg Casten and Pepe and Aisha, are people who really make the history of the hospitality industry work. And their stories are so important because when you go down to sit at a restaurant table, you should know what you're in for, not just what's on the plate. So thanks so much for joining me today and have a delicious week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.